So I know everybody on your timeline is trying to scare you about AI. Well, I have good news is that AI is not going to overthrow the music producer community. I want you guys to understand AI in a whole different way. I even wrote you guys a free book called Game Time, which you can get at busyworksbeats.com/book. It's completely free. I redid my books to where they read just like a professional book. So I have 4 books for you guys. I'll even show you on the screen here. Here's the what you have access to. You have access to my Busy Signal and the audiobook as well. Busy Signal goes over more like business principles, online business principles. Game Time goes over how to beat AI in the new agentic era coming. Then we have 50 Laws of Beat Making. This is for music production technique, like actual craft technique. And then we have the Producer Bible, which is for mindset. Okay, so today we're going to talk about Game Time. Now, this one is, again, written for the incoming agentic era, and I want to prepare you guys in the community. So I let you guys know my intent right here at the top of the page. And again, this is completely free. Just go to busyworksbeats.com/book. So chapter 3, I'm just going to skip ahead to chapter 3. This book is very short. My other books are way longer, but this one's just getting straight to the point. So here we have chapter 3, how to beat AI. So the first thing is building a strong personal brand. I'm just going to read off the screen, but you guys can actually follow along with the PDF version of this. So building a personal brand, what does that mean? It means that your name is top of mind for a specific solution. And I say solution specifically, not just some random keyword. I'm talking about a problem that somebody has. They think of your name as a solution for said problem or category of problems. So for example, when people come to BusyWorks Beats, they think, okay, he can solve my FL Studio problems, my music theory problems, and my online business and online marketing problems. That's what I'm known for because I keep going over these topics and solving that. I've become what's called an authority in this space because I've solved thousands and thousands of people's problems over and over again. So that long transactional history, it's not about what I tell people, it's about what they've seen. I have 6,000 videos solving problems. Every single video solves a problem. So when I've solved problems 6,000 times, when you see that many transactions, you go, okay, I can trust this person can solve a problem. They've been doing this 6,000 times plus, way over 6,000. I'm just giving you guys a small number. Okay, so that's what you have to do in your personal brand. You have to be known for, I'd recommend you guys be known for solving a problem. Now, for example, when you think Kim K, for example, that's a different thing that doesn't really solve a problem. Some people may associate her with Ray J and that ordeal. Some people may associate her with Kanye West. So depending on how you came across Kim Kardashian, for example, determines how you perceive her. Now, does she solve a problem for you? It depends on what you deem a problem in that case. So that's where you have to understand the difference between personal brands. Okay, there's one that has authority, one does not have authority. Okay, so, basically I just go through the different archetypes of personal branding that you guys can focus on. Now, the main thing is that the goal of this is to resonate with a specific audience. You don't have to be fake. You don't have to be phony. It's just you're structuring the perception of your brand around a specific archetype because it's easier for people to digest that storyline. So one of the storylines is called Reluctant Hero. This is the person who just discovers something. I actually did this by accident. So here's the story. I had one technical music theory course in my entire life. It was in college, run by Michael Hollinger. Shout out to him. The course was called like songwriting and I think song structure and songwriting, something like that. So I think I was with him for a full semester. And he taught me, the musical staff and how to write lyrics and just what goes into writing an actual song. Now, keep in mind, I had zero previous music theory knowledge. I was never in band. I was in band in 4th grade, but I really didn't go to practice. And I was dabbling in FL Studio. So I didn't know theory like that. I was actually anti-theory at the time. So he taught me the musical staff. He taught me how to arrange things and write lyrics and everything. But the problem was I would get home to FL Studio and go to play a 1-3-5, which is what they deem, a major or minor chord, depending on where you start. So I go, okay, 1, and I would count up the keyboard. So I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I play those notes and I go, that doesn't sound like a minor chord or major chord. Okay, and so I basically haphazardly discovered chord codes, which is when you sound design, you have to use semitone values. So I came up with this chord code system, which is based on what's called integer notation. So for example, I can close my eyes. Let me show you guys on this app real quick. This app here is called Chord Watch. I'll leave a link below. Weaver Beats put me onto it and the company's pretty dope. All right, so I can close my eyes, pick any note. So this note is A, and let's say I want to make an A minor ninth chord. There's a chord code for it, almost like DNA. Every chord has a specific DNA to it. So it doesn't matter where you are on the keyboard. The chord code for a minor ninth chord is 0, 3, 7, 10, 14. I give you guys a chord code chart for free. You don't have to memorize this. Just go to busyworksbeats.com/music theory. So here we have A. Let's count up our keyboards. So this is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Play all those notes together, you get A minor ninth. Now I'm just going to show you guys other chords. So all these different chords have a chord code to it, and I discovered that by accident. So that's the reluctant hero. And this is a really true story, how I discovered chord codes. And that became one of my pivotal storylines for my personal brand, which it is an actual true story, and it actually happened. Okay, and it has a ton of value because it basically supersedes all of the music theory knowledge that they try to tell us we need, scales and being in the diatonic scale, and you need to make chords off of scale degrees and all this stuff that convolutes music theory. I cut straight through that and I said, here's how you make a chord. It doesn't matter what key you're in. I show you how to make chords. Some of the best chords are going out of key. Watch this. So for example, that's going out of key. And you can even learn revoicing techniques. And it's all based on understanding chord codes when you get into it. So you can go really deep with this in our chord code technology and in music theory magic at busyworksbeats.com. So I took what's called the reluctant hero, approach to my personal brand, which is I just discovered something that's super powerful, which is actually true. So you guys can position whatever you're presenting to the market as that you've discovered it. And you didn't mean to discover it. You didn't mean to be the person who solves everybody's problems. You just happen to be the messenger or the vessel for that. You have another archetype called the anti-hero. And basically this is somebody who helps people and is their hero. However, they're not the traditional hero. So most heroes have a suit on, they look like Superman, they're ripped. They have the, Spider-Man costume on. An anti-hero would be somebody in like bummy clothes, who probably doesn't wash after themselves, but they have some kind of superpower that helps people. So I'm not saying this person is this. I'm saying an anti-hero in the music production space is Nest Acoustics, for example. The man does so much magic on serum, but he acts like a normal person, but he is not a normal person. Okay, so go look up Nest Acoustics. He is not a normal person, but he acts like a normal person. And so in that case, he's an anti-hero. He doesn't have the traditional traits of a hero, but he has actual superpowers, when it comes to serum. Now here's the other archetype is called Chosen One. So Chosen One is all about like a messianic approach. This would be your almost like a celebrity approach to becoming a personal brand. Not everybody who has a personal brand is a celebrity. Those are two separate concepts. You can be an expert at a category and have authority to help people without being a celebrity. Celebrity, some people tie that to the word influencer, but celebrity in my case is almost like a hollow clout that it's convoluted to explain it here, but the currency is social digital currency and social currency, clout coins. That's what most celebrities are trading. What they'll do is they'll create this perception of brand that makes them larger than life. And then they'll trade that for actual assets like Lamborghinis, fast cars, chains, women, whatever. So that's where celebrity comes into play. But it's not necessarily based on actual value. It's based on perceived value because people want to associate with things that raise their perceived value. For example, Louis Vuitton is made in the same factory as I'm sure some great brands out of America, but one is worth $2,000, one is worth $200. Why the difference? It's just perception. There's no actual physical, tangible value difference. It's the perception of value. And also pricing has to do with that as well. So that would be your chosen one persona. Most people can't pull this off without major backing. I'm not telling you guys what you can and can't do, but the chosen one is really, think Nipsey Hussle, think Tupac, think your I'm trying to think of like revolutionary folks in the music industry, but Kanye West, it's mainly the highest of high celebrity. Now the next form of personal brand is the everyman. Now this is your Larry O's, for example. He's just like, hey guys, it's got a tip for you, but he's super well known in our music production space. But he doesn't act as if he is just this grandiose being. He just acts like the everyday person. Nextly, you have what's called the outsider. This is the person who basically uses contrarian takes to create and amalgamize and galvanize the black sheeps of the community into a group. And this would be your Weaver Beats, for example. He uses the outsider archetype to attract his audience and build his personal brand. So his brand is built off of the opposite of whatever the mainstream is doing in our specific sub community called the producer community. Okay. Now there are more archetypes. One is called the Dark Knight. And it says, now this would be your person that teeters ethics. Okay. So it's like, you know how like, what's it? Not Peter Pan, Robin Hood, how Robin Hood stole from the rich, gave to the poor. Well, it's like stealing is bad, but they used it for quote unquote good. So this is what the Dark Knight archetype is all about. It's about somebody who uses questionable techniques to go about the good of the community, whatever that means. So again, this might be in this producer community, your pirating sites or your people who control discords that share links that aren't necessarily legal. Okay. So then you have the misunderstood genius. This isn't the intelligent person, but socially isolated. So this would be somebody who just sees way ahead in the future. I'm trying to think somebody in our producer community who's the misunderstood genius. Maybe myself. No, I'm definitely more of a reluctant hero approach to my personal brand. But also in some scenarios, you can basically pit me as the misunderstood genius in a certain storyline. If you guys followed in the last 2 to 3 years when we went, had conversations with a Dame Taylor, for example, Weaver Beats, Curtis King, those type of people, I positioned a different way because you can't always be on the perceived good side all the time. Okay, so the next person is the rebel. This is the person who opposes authority and fights the system. This would be your, what's his name? Messi. Man, forgive me. I forgot his name. But I think he's Italian. Forgive me. But I think he goes by Messi. Trying to think of somebody who's a little bit more known. Okay, I just thought of it. So for example, a Ben Jordan, okay, would be more of a rebel, somebody who tries to break the rules for the greater good type thing. Then you have prodigal son, initially loses their way and returns to provision and safety. This one, I haven't seen anybody really pull off the prodigal son in the producer community. But if you guys know anybody who kind of pulled off that archetype, let me know in the comments below. So again, there's a difference between expert positioning and being an influencer. So I go through how to create authority, what is called authority. I'm not going to bore you guys to tears about every little detail. You guys can read the book. Just go to busyworksbeats.com/book. But here, I'm just going to give you guys ideas about building your community. A lot of these derive from the core concept built in the book called Social Code. Okay, so I go into depth about that. So community engagement, you could think of hosting beat battles, song competition. Now, here's the mistake. There are channels and brands that build their brand specifically on just beat battles or just song feedback or just song competitions. That's, you have to think of it as a limb of the body. You can't have a full body with just a hand or just an arm. You need legs, you need the back, you need the spine, you need all the pieces. So if you just do one thing, it's not going to build a full body. And for people to basically to build a capacitor and to retain energy of the people so that the energy builds up and resonates to build a greater energy to attract even more people, you have to create the systems of the body. I think the body has 12 systems, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, I just looked it up. The body has 11 systems that control our entire body. So it's not one thing that controls everything. So you have to think in terms of how do you balance this with everything else that you do in your specific brand. So these ideas are, to host competitions like beat battles or song competitions, to do collab sessions in studio through a Discord, through Muse and all the different tools out there, to offer education, for example, because preachers teach and leaders motivate and teach. So if you want to be a leader, you have to educate your people. Remix challenges. Okay, we've seen people do those. And the last thing I'll say for today, which you guys can get the entire book, it goes into much more depth about how to stay in power as a tribal leader. And I warn you, this information is not for everybody. This is for people who are going to use it for the right purposes. Okay. That's why I wrote this book. So fourthly, the last thing you have to understand is that there are 5 senses in the human body. We have vision, we have hearing, we have smell, we have taste, we have touch. So your brand is not just one of those things. Most people think brand is just a visual thing. Like put me next to a Louis Vuitton, put me next to a Rolls Royce, put me next to I already said Louis Vuitton, put me next to a Rolex watch, whatever it is. That's only one of the 5 elements. Think about Starbucks. When you see Starbucks, you see the icon. Okay. It's Starbucks. You go in, you open the doors, you smell the waft of, coffee grounds. Okay. You go in and you pay with your money and you exchange and you touch the cup. And then you pour back the coffee, and now you're drinking the coffee, and you're hearing the chatter around you, people who are using the free Wi-Fi around you. Okay. And the hustle and bustle behind the counter. So that activates all 5 senses. That's why physical stores have such an advantage over digital, because in digital land, you can't activate the 5 senses, whereas in physical, you can. And that is what ultimately creates what we call a moat, something that is defensible in your business. Now, Peter Thiel writes about creating a monopoly and creating a defensive monopoly. You guys can read his book 0 to 1. It goes into way more depth about that type of thing. But the main thing is you want to create something that somebody else can't just clone, especially in the AI era and the agentic era coming soon. You don't want to create something that everybody can just literally watch you upload it. They copy and paste and make the same thing. You have to create something that they literally cannot copy. For example, Illmind was great at this in the producer community. He made something called Blap Chat, which was a podcast about music production. And then he would, make drum kits called Blap Kits. And then I think he has some other spinoff of the word blap, but I'm not recalling it right now. But the main thing is you can't copy Illmind no matter what you do. You can call your stuff Boom Bap Kits, and you can call your podcast, Boom Bap Podcast, but it's not going to have that Illmind thing of blap. Okay. So that's what you have to create for your specific brand. All right, y'all. I'm not going to make this video super long, but go get those books. Just go to busyworksbeats.com/book. And here are the books too, by the way. You have the 50 Laws of Beat Making. This book is about music production and the craft of music production. You have Busy Signal. This book is about online business and marketing. You have Producer Bible. This one's about mindset and how to change your reality. And then we have Game Time, which is about the agentic era and how to defend yourself against AI. All right. Because I'm tired of people putting out fear videos about AI. It's really not what you guys think. All right, y'all. Subscribe if you're new. Peace.